So it has been some weekend of football to say the least. We're coming off the back of that ridiculous World Cup final where Argentina and Messi were crowned champions, but we are here today to discuss all of the championship action which went down over the weekend. We've got 10 games to discuss in today's video. Obviously in the end we did have the Luton against Millwall game being postponed. Also have another game going on tonight, Wigan against Sheffield United, but for the other 10 matches that have taken place, this is the place to go ahead and discuss them. So as always, do leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you do go into enjoy, make sure to leave a like. But without any further ado, let's jump into this one. Starting out with Friday night's game, we had a bit of a cracker in the end. Birmingham 3, Reading 2. I wasn't fancying many goals to be scored in this game, given how Birmingham's previous matchup against Blackpool went. We spoke about the different avenues we thought that Birmingham might have to explore while Scott Hogan's not available. You know, he has been their main source of goals so far this season, but 3 in the first half, and a really good first half showing from this Birmingham side. Troy Deeney, it was a catalogue of errors really for that first goal, but Deeney latching on to the end of it. Then in typical trademark fashion with that thumping penalty to make it 2 before Chong adds the third before half time. Second half, and Birmingham were sort of happy to sit on what they had, did allow Reading back into it and set up what was quite a nervy end in the end with Lucas Jow and Tom Ince grabbing 2 late goals for Reading, but in the end it was Birmingham with the deserved 3 points. And got to say, massive sort of testament to the job that John Eustace has done at Blues this season, considering this was a side who at the start of the season I, like a lot of people, had Birmingham down as one of the main relegation contenders. The fact they're now 8th in the table, just 2 points off the top 6, is, yeah, a real testament to the great work that he's done there this season. Next then to Ashton Gate for Bristol City 1, Stoke City 2. More misery for Bristol City. We spoke about this one being quite a tight match coming into it. I was expecting Bristol City to maybe get the better of it, given they got the job done away at Rotherham. They actually took the lead in this one. Naki Wells with another goal for his tally, but once again some really sloppy in-game decisions and allowing Stoke to get back into this, who by no means were at their sparkling best, and I think that Stoke fans would probably admit that one. The biggest plaudit that we can probably give Stoke at the moment though is their forwards have started to find the back of the net a little bit more regularly. You know, up until this point in the season, Stoke have had some of the most wasteful forwards in the Championship, so the fact that, you know, the likes of Delap and Brown are now getting on the score sheet, Campbell as well, getting involved with the goals on a more regular basis, is something for Alex Neil to work with long term, because I still think that in terms of the overall performance and package, there's still a long way to go for this Stoke side. But yeah, more real misery for this Bristol City team, a side who we've never really discussed as being part of the relegation battle, but looking at the table doesn't make for great reason for Bristol City fans, considering the run of form they're on at the moment. They're only 3 points off that relegation zone. I don't expect them to be in there come the end of the season, but with the way they're going at the moment, the Championship can be a very unpredictable league, and the momentum at Bristol City isn't good at the moment. Burnley against Middlesbrough turned out to be a really good spectacle, to be fair. Middlesbrough on a great run of form coming into this one, but we all thought that maybe this one would be one game too far. Did take the lead, Duncan Watmore with another goal for his tally, but what I do like about this Burnley side is even when they do have those setbacks in matches, there's no panic within this side to sort of change their game plan or approach, and when that is needed, company has, you know, a plethora of options to bring on from the bench. But once again, it was Manuel Benson being that magic man for Burnley on the right hand side. I honestly think he's one of the most enjoyable players to watch in the Championship, and that equalising goal especially is just him down to a T. Has Ryan Giles absolutely spinning in all directions, and then finishes it in at the near post. Cheeky second attempt, well, sort of with that floated ball that goes all the way in the end, and then that third goal ultimately going in off Johnny Howson. Few question marks, I think rightly so, over Zach Stefan. Don't think he exactly covered himself in glory for a couple of those goals, and then we nearly got that quite dramatic end set up with that Connor Roberts red card for his best sort of Luis Suarez impression, but didn't actually look to touch the ball coming off the crossbar, but he did sort of gesture towards it, which is what the referee obviously saw, but only in the end for Akpom to miss the penalty. So certainly from a Middlesbrough point of view, no disgrace to be going to a side like Burnley and losing, and I do think they've got a couple decent matches after this one that they'll have their sights set on to get back to winning ways. But for Burnley, I mean, they are still by far and away, I think, the best side in the Championship, and I think it's in games like this against informed teams like Middlesbrough where they just continue to showcase that. Next then to Cardiff up against Blackpool. We mentioned going into this one that 3 points would have been massive for either side, and it didn't quite happen that way. Cardiff definitely the more frustrated side after the 90 minutes to have not walked away with all 3 points. First half performance especially, it looked like Cardiff who were all over Blackpool in terms of having the chances, getting into some decent and threatening areas, but as has been the case with Cardiff throughout the majority of this season so far, just looking a little bit blunt in the final third. One player who they have banked on in terms of consistent goal contributions this season though has been Callum Robinson, and another one in this game with an outrageous assist for the opener for Cardiff just before that half-time mark. Brilliant sort of outside of the foot through ball threaded through to make it 1-0 for Cardiff, and 9 goal contributions in a side who aren't exactly blessed for loads of attacking quality. I think really speaks to the job that Callum Robinson has done at Cardiff so far this season. Frustratingly so though, and we've had this a few times with them this season when they've not been able to capitalise on their dominance, only could get that 1 goal over the line, and in the end Blackpool sensed their opportunity to get back into it in the second half, and of course it had to be Gary Medine, the former Cardiff player, that got on the score sheet. But once again, and similar to what we were saying about Blackpool and their performance against Birmingham the other week, it sort of feels like another point which papers over the cracks of what was a pretty mediocre performance once again. Certainly not one that's going to get fans off their seats or anything like that. We also had the news coming out before this about Cardiff and their transfer embargo, really worrying stuff in terms of future deals and investments that they will be restricted to over the next few transfer windows, although that story will continue to develop up until January, I'm sure. Coventry against Swansea was a game which had a bit of everything really. Coventry opening the scoring through Panzo, and then Allen and Gyökeres with the second and third looked to be cruising them to a quite comfortable 3 points. Some really shocking defending by Swansea in the build-up to a few of those goals, but credit to Swansea, made a couple of tactical tweaks in that second half and didn't let their heads drop. It was Joel Perreault in the end who inspired that comeback with the first goal for the Swans, a player who I've been quite frustrated with throughout this season. He's not had all too many of those moments and has been probably one of their more wasteful players actually in the final third, which is crazy considering how prolific he was last season. But nice finish to go ahead and spot their comeback, and from that point, Coventry seemed to be quite happy to sit in their shape, and I think whatever you say about Swansea and how well they did to get back into this game, to blow a 3-goal lead, I think this one's totally on Coventry and their game management actually being really poor from that point onwards. But not taking anything away from Swansea, Fulton and Cullen in the end with the goals, which ended up levelling this one into a 3-3 thriller, and just a bit of a bonkers game really. Certainly didn't see that one come in. Next then to Huddersfield up against Watford. Really am struggling to find many positives for this Huddersfield side at the moment. They're now 7 points off safety, and after another real miserable afternoon against Watford, did take Watford a little bit of time to click up through the gears in this one. First half especially didn't have all too much about them, despite Huddersfield having more of the ball, not really using it to craft out many clear-cut opportunities. 15 shots for Huddersfield in this one, just 2 of them being on target throughout the 90. In the end, it was João Pedro who stepped up in that second half with 2 moments for them, the first one being a real thumping finish, the second one obviously scored from the set piece. Huddersfield I will actually get to see in the flesh at the weekend on Boxing Day against North End. Interested to see how they set up for that one, but the way they're going at the moment, it's tough to see them surviving, if I'm being honest. Next then to Hull 1, Sunderland 1. Bit of a frustrating one for the home side in the end, given how much control they had, especially in the second half of this one. First half didn't look to me all too much between these two sides, but especially when that red card rolled around for Sunderland in the second half, Hull really started to get on top here. Elliot Embleton ultimately coming out on the bad end of that 50-50, really nasty injury, and also picked up the red card for it. It was Ross Stewart who gave Sunderland the lead against the run of play. Massive booster for Sunderland for the second half of the season to have him back, and his goals to minutes ratio this season is absolutely outrageous. Considering the minutes he's played, he's currently averaging a goal contribution in the Championship every 73 minutes, which is absolutely ridiculous. It was a really cheeky finish as well, and sort of did Ingram in net for Hull there with that cheeky finish past him. It was Ozan Tufan who was on hand though to get Hull back into it, and a deserved point at the very least considering how much Hull had going for them in this one. Sunderland couldn't quite get it going, and I don't think the worst point in the world considering they were down to 10 men for the majority of that second half. After that, 2 deep deal for North End up against QPR. Neil Critchley's first game in charge of QPR, starting out with all 3 points, and honestly pretty impressed with what I saw from them. It wasn't a fully cohesive 90 minutes, and there are still areas which he will have to work on, but there were several sort of 10-minute spells throughout this one where QPR really had North End under pressure and could have had more than the 1 goal they scored in this one. I think we got quite lucky in the end actually to have got away with some of the mistakes we made in that back line, and QPR really had us under pressure. Disappointed with how the goal comes about in the end. You know, we were done off a set piece. It has been somewhat of a weakness for this side so far this season given how many set piece situations we have conceded goals from, and we did have a few chances to get back into this one. Ben Woodburn and Brad Potts especially with 2 good chances, but I think we probably would have been quite undeserving of a point actually. It was QPR who were the better side in this one, and maybe just an example of the North End squad depth that isn't quite there at the moment. You know, we do have a lot of people out injured at the moment, and maybe that result and performance against Blackburn sort of covered over the cracks for that one, because this is a North End squad, you know, with the bare minimum at the moment, you know, if you're looking at the players who are currently making up the bench. So hopefully we'll have a few of those boys back for next time against Huddersfield, because our home record and home form is something that does need to be worked on. But credit to QPR and Critchley, could see them being a good couple for each other. West Brom's improvement under Carlos Corberán continues with a convincing 3-0 win over Rotherham and their rise up the Championship along with that. Really comfortable stuff from West Brom in here. I know it was, you know, no disrespect to Rotherham, but only Rotherham they were playing, but the level of football, the chances they're creating at the moment, this is night and day to what we were seeing previously under Steve Bruce. From a Rotherham perspective, they virtually offered nothing for this game. 2 shots, just 1 of them on target. Really couldn't get any quality on the ball, get themselves up the pitch and cause this West Brom side any problems, and from minute 1 it just looked like they were there for the taking really. Jed Wallace, a notable performer from that West Brom side, took the first goal really well, set up the second. Thomas Asante as well, obviously had that penalty save but folded it in well to make it 3 for West Brom. And there are goals in this West Brom side, you know, we've continued to say it throughout this season. If the manager does manage to find the winning formula, there's a hell of a lot of talent which is waiting to be tapped into within this West Brom side. It's just a question of can he get out that on a consistent basis into a cohesive unit. We're seeing that at the moment, albeit still a long way to go. And then finishing off today for Norwich 0, Blackburn 2. The problems continue to pile up in at Norwich. I think even before this, when things had been going their way in terms of picking up results, we've spoken about it quite a bit on the channel, but the general level of performances hasn't quite matched up with Norwich and them being sat in the top 6 at the moment. I think a lot of those fragilities were really on show in this one. I also think that frustration is really seeping through to the fan base at the moment, just looking at how many empty seats there actually were in this game. I know it was an evening game, you know, with Christmas right around the corner and on Sky, but even so, not the sort of pictures that we're accustomed to seeing in at Carrow Road, and I think that really speaks to the frustration of the supporters at the moment. Blackburn continue to perplex me with their performances week in, week out. To go from the shambles of that game against Preston to 3 points away at Carrow Road, yeah, that takes some doing, and that sort of transition. Blackburn have that astonishing record where each time they've scored first in the game they've gone on to win, and when they've conceded first they go on to lose, and that pattern continued in this one. Quite a clever free kick taken for that early goal, caught a few Norwich defenders cold. Don't think they were ready for the free kick to be taken that soon, and obviously Tyrese Dolan wrapping things up in the second half. So yeah, Blackburn continue to be weird. Norwich continue to sort of underperform even when some of the results do go their way, and yeah, the pressure cranking up on Dean Smith. But guys, there we have it. Those were all the matches that did take place in the Championship over the weekend. We do also have one game which is taking place in midweek. It's Coventry going up against West Brom, so do leave your score predictions down below for that one. Score prediction from me, I think I'm fancying the Baggies for that one actually. 2-1 West Brom. They seem to be on a bit of a roll under Carlos Corberán at the moment, and Coventry just showed a few too many vulnerabilities in that second half against Swansea. So 2-1 West Brom I'm saying for that game. If you did go on to enjoy today's video though guys, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. But other than that, thanks for watching and I'll see you all in the next one.